Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
A very good morning to you. We are so grateful to have you join us here on Global Morning. I'm Uyag Mofwegbe, live in Abuja on Global Television. I'm sure you had a great weekend. The business week, as we know it, has just started. We're sure yours is off to a great start. We have an opportunity in front of us to do a review of most of the highlights from last week, especially within the social political space in particular. Looking at governance and its structure. There are people who believe that things are moving real fast under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu with regards to not just the appointments already announced or, if you like, approved, but certain pronouncements and then, of course, policy direction, as we now see within the economy and in other very critical sectors. It's now the hope of Nigerians that the hope that they have will be renewed in line with the renewed hope agenda of this government under the leadership of President Tinubu. As we speak, the president is in New York with one thing in mind, to attend the United Nations General Assembly, that is the 78th UNGA. We understand that according to the Special Advisor on Media and Publicity to the President, Ajuri Ngalale, that the president has front and center the objective of driving foreign direct investments into Nigeria, which the country so desperately needs at this point in time, for a country that still largely depends on oil. And by the way, we're hearing today that oil has now is now selling for something in the neighborhood of $94 per barrel. And then back at home, we continue to suffer the challenge of oil theft. We continue to suffer refineries that are moribund. We continue to suffer rock bottom production level, all of which have adversely, very adversely impacted the status, or if you like, the value of the Naira. The Naira continues to get weakened against the US dollar on account of these factors already enumerated. And the Bola Tinubu government says that if there's one thing it must accomplish for Nigeria, and indeed for Nigerians going forward, is to ensure that the country's currency continues to get strengthened, and that there has to be this sort of robust framework around the FX, that is the foreign exchange regime in Nigeria. But very importantly too, which is fundamental, is to encourage production, give as much support as possible to manufacturing, which again drives development and growth in any economy. And then, of course, there must be issue of priority and attention accorded to infrastructure as well. We're seeing former governor of Ebonyi State, now Minister of Works, Engineer Senator David Umai, doing a whole lot of work with regards to road rehabilitation, road construction across the country. And Global Television has followed virtually all of those developments for you. But we are going to take a quick break at this point. When we return, we will look at headlines for you from across our national dailies. Let's take a look at the papers for you. It turns out we're starting with the Daily Sun this morning. Okay, just beside the nameplate of the Daily Sun, Monday, 18th of September edition, says Obi in Bangladesh says SMEs key to global economic growth. Panic in CBN as probe expands. Investigators beam searchlight on top SARS firms. Cronies, anxiety as Anchor borrowers loan recovery deadline elapses. That is today. Actually, we understand that over $500 billion. All right, it's still hanging. Some people say yet to be paid back by those who benefited from the Anchor Borrowers Program, which essentially focused on rice farming in the northern part of Nigeria. Now, questions are being asked as to, first, the idea behind the initiative itself, how it was conceived, why it was conceived, and now, more importantly, what are the reasons these monies have not been paid back? Because there's a reason they are called loans. Okay, and it turns out, incidentally, that window for repayment closes today. So what happens going forward? What would the central bank, the midwife of the Anchor Borrowers Program, do in this regard going forward? We wait to see how that pans out. But there is one more rider under this headline. Emefiele resigned in August. Sources recall that he was suspended by the president in June, but here we understand that he resigned in August. All right. RMAFC defends salaries of political office holders, pulls Tinubu's pay at less than 1.5 million naira monthly. Ministers below 1 million naira. That's on page 6 of the Daily Sun newspaper. CJN inaugurates 9 appeal court justices September 20. That is on Wednesday. Supreme Court Justice Amina Ogie bows out. Tinubu nominates new ministers for Ministry of Youth. We brought you that story yesterday in the course of our news rounds. Atiku accuses Tinubu of planning to unleash regime of propaganda. Demolition Abuja traders writes AGF over police disobedience of court orders. Actor Jimmy Odukoya succeeds dad as church overseer. Shake-up in NNPCL as 3 EVPs retired. President approves replacements. Airstrikes destroy over 30 illegal oil refining sites in Rivers. 5 die, 12 injured in Lagos-Ibadan highway accident. These are all essentially stories, big stories. You would find if you pick up a copy of today's Daily Sun. That takes us to our next paper this morning, which is the Punch newspaper. Let's take a look at the Punch for you. Okay, big story on the front page of the Punch says, marketers eye fresh fuel price hike as crude hits $94. I already made an allusion to that at the top of the program this morning. NATO, that is NARTO, plans price hike, raises concern over FG's insistence on 617 naira per litre petrol price. Operators insist petrol subsidy returning gradually. NNPCL gets 3 new VPs. Okay, NDLEA rescues pregnant teenagers, arrests suspected drug traffickers. You'll find pictures of the suspects on the front page of today's Punch newspaper. But then let's look at the foot of the Punch right on the front page. Oyo Messi awaiting Makinde on new Alaafin. Basharun says that on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. 2 hospitalized as 500-room Lagos building collapses. Details of that sad story can be found when you pick up a copy of today's Punch newspaper and look at pages 4 and 5. Cardoso, National Assembly plans quick screening, private sector demands reforms. And that takes us to stories on the just above the nameplate of the Punch. Umahi woos presidency as contractors. Let's see that. As contractors oppose concrete roads. 20.5 kg cooking gas price may hit 18,000 naira by December. FG Labour meets today on post-subsidy talks. We are believing and hoping that Labour will turn up for that meeting, because we understand that the other time they wouldn't show up for the meeting that had been scheduled between the NLC, the organized Labour as we know it, and the federal government. And for Labour, the reason was straightforward. They said that government wasn't showing commitment to deliberations or talks around efforts aimed at resolving these logjam that they're having with regards to post-subsidy removal talks. But around that time, we also saw there was a bit of split between the NLC and the Trade Union Congress, that is the TUC. All right, but then the question is, when it's all said and done, what more efforts can be put in to ensure that there is an amicable resolution of these issues? Because ultimately, this is about Nigerians. Because this conversation is even in front of us in the first instance on account of the fact that there was a removal of fuel subsidy, and that has sparked several challenges within the socio-economic space of the country. Okay, let's turn to our newspaper now, everyone. The Nation newspaper is our next port of call. When you look at the front of the Nation newspaper, the big story you see there says, dispute stalls federal government Emefiele plea bargain talks. Suspended CBN governor may face trial while deputy governors were dropped. $55 million NLNG dividend, FAC queries NNPCL. Exporters lead forex supply. Umahi, we inherited 6 trillion naira funding gap on 2,604 projects. A controversy over 418 million naira Paris Club reforms lingers. Federal government NLC meets on planned strike. Appeal court gets 9 new judges who understand that their swearing in will be on Wednesday, the 20th of September. Okay, so you want to look out for that. Kwara governor hails nomination of Bio Ibrahim as youth minister on page 12. And then at the very foot of the front page of the Nation newspaper, very sad story here. 5 died, 12 injured in multiple Lagos-Ibadan highway crash. Okay, Daily Trust, that's our next paper this morning. Daily Trust, on the front page of it, it says, Auditor General's absence stalls audits of MDAs for 3 years. Constitution allows acting for 6 months only. Office poorly funded since 1999. Vacuum makes governance susceptible to mismanagement. Senate panel. Tinubu will appoint substantive Auditor General soon. Presidency. Flood destroys over 100 houses in Plateau. FCTA to remove attached shops at Area 1 complex. FG invites Labour for fresh meeting to avert strike. That meeting is scheduled for today. Nigeria-Cuba signed MOU on feed security agric advancements. Find details on page 107 of today's Daily Trust newspaper. Above, just beneath the nameplate, airstrikes destroy over 30 illegal refining sites in Rivers. 2.34 trillion naira spent on debt servicing in 6 months. That's according to Debt Management Office. Tinubu appoints 2 ministers for Youth's Ministry. So that takes us to our next paper this morning, which is News Direct. Let's see what we have right on the front page. But let's begin with the headlines above the nameplate. One with a picture of the chairman of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Buba Marwa. There says NDLEA rescues 5 pregnant teenage girls being trafficked in Owerri. For starters, Owerri is the Imo State capital in southeastern Nigeria. Ogun State raises alarm on cholera outbreak. Then the big story, subsidy removal. FG meets Labour today over insistence on indefinite strike palliative distribution as Labour's 21-day ultimatum expires this week. Incidentally, the president jetted out to New York yesterday, but the good thing is we understand the Minister of Labour, immediate past governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong, is on the ground to meet with the organized Labour. Good governance, Lagos holds retreat for commissioners, permanent secretaries. Serap drags Tinubu to court over collection of retirement benefits by ex-governors serving in cabinets. REA to deploy Naseni renewable technologies to light up rural areas in Nigeria. Governor Adeleke survives plane crash, alleges engines were tampered with. You find that story on page 23 of News Direct. We understand that the relevant authorities have already swung into action and they are now looking for the remote and immediate causes of that malfunction that led to the averted plane crash. Yesterday, we understand that the governor was scheduled to fly from Lagos to Abuja, but then he couldn't do that owing to technical problems with the engines of the plane. Now, the governor is alleging foul play, but we wait to see what the findings of experts in this regard will be. DMO reports Nigeria's debt service climbs to 2.34 trillion naira within 6 months. Okay, that's a story on the front page of today's News Direct, so you want to look it up for yourself. But let's also take a look at the Blueprint newspaper for you this morning. Investment flow to Nigerian telecom sector hits $77 billion in Q2 2023, page 25. But now we hear that the president is not satisfied with that, so is continuing to push the frontiers to ensure that Nigeria gains more traction with regards to increasing investment flow, particularly foreign direct investments into the country. CJN inaugurates 9 appeal court justices on Wednesday. Police killed 10 suspected bandits, rescued 3 in Bochi community. Tinubu appoints former sports minister's daughter, 1 other as youth ministers. Why we can't increase Tinubu minister's salary, that's according to the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Committee, RMAFC. Says economic reality reason for delay. NBS under reporting inflation needs new methodology. That's according to Professor Laolu Adefolari. All right. President earns less than 1.5 million naira. Ministers about 1 million naira. Data used outdated. That's Rwani there talking, the managing director of Derivatives Limited. All right, that is a Financial Derivatives Limited. Okay, ahead NLC LG Pali today. Labour says we are ready for dialogue. That sounds better than what we had seen previously. Kano Maradi $2 billion rail project to be completed by 2025. That's according to the federal government. How Adeleke others escaped plane crash. Aid. Obasanjo's stand-up order. Ex-president's wife begs Oyo monarchs. Okay, so find all of these stories on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. But we have 2 more to go. But now let's look at the Vanguard newspaper, beginning from just above the nameplate of the Vanguard. FG inherited 14 trillion naira debts over 2,600 road projects. Umahi. Nigeria failed aviation safety audits. NCAT's rector. Students' visa. UK hikes fees for Nigerians' orders. Impeachment move. Senators disagree over plots to remove Akpabio. 1.1 trillion naira anchors borrower funds. Bank chiefs risk arrests. Okay, that's a developing story that we will continue to follow for you because the Anchor Borrowers Program turned out to be very pivotal to the overall scheme around scaling agricultural output for Nigerians, especially under former President Muhammadu Buhari. But now we understand that the window for repayment of those loans closes today. The question is, what happens going forward? We have seen reporting around some alleged abysmal performance of those who benefited from these loans. In fact, there have been allegations of how that people who know nothing next to farming actually benefited very handsomely from these loans. But the important thing at this point is that the opportunity to pay back those loans closes today, Monday, 18th September 2023. So what will the CBN do? What happens to those who benefited? In what ways are they going to be held to account? What measures will be put in place to ensure that the right thing is done with regards to ensuring that there is justice ultimately? Well, we'll wait to find out. But there's a big story right on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper today. Outrage as RMAFC defends jumbo pay of NAS members' orders. And we have about 4 riders there for you. says it's disheartening, unjustifiable, unacceptable. NLC NECA, it's heartless. Ankyo Briggs, it is insensitive. Labour Party supports. I support living wage for all. Oro, okay. All of these, these all have their pictures of Senate President Akpabio, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 general election, Peter Obi, and then, of course, the DG of Nigeria Employer Consultative Agency, Adewale Smart or Yerinde, right there. Okay, but let's look at other stories, other headlines for you this morning. Okay, pension contributors, retirees, agitators, unresolved complaints pile up. Unical sex scandal, Women Affairs Minister apologizes. Strike, FG invites NLC for meeting today. By the way, you will find details of that story on page 9 of today's Vanguard newspaper. Okay, 3 Nigerian boxers qualify for Paris 2024 Olympics. Some bit of cherry news right there for you. But lastly, Tinubu nominates Jamila Ibrahim, Youth Minister, Olawande, Minister of Sports. These are all stories from today's Vanguard newspaper. As usual, Odinkanlu has his column on page 17 of the Vanguard newspaper. It's a Monday, so you want to look that up and put your week on a winning path. Okay. Lastly, we're looking at Business Day, where we get to follow the money for you. Cardoso takes helm of CBN as FX backlog lingers. We understand his appointment by the president takes immediate effect. The economics of Abuja, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Nigeria's major oil buyers among top electric vehicle users. Quite an irony, right? It's interesting. But then you want to read that up and see how eye-opening it can be for you. And that's a full circle on the paper segment on the show. This morning, we're taking the break. When I return, I'll be joined by veteran journalists, and together we'll be looking at quite a couple of developing stories, especially as they have to do with the leadership of President Bola Tinubu for you. And I'll be in a bit. Stay with us.